Welcome back to Spool Heads. It's been a few months since my last video and I want to show you what I've been working on. I've had a lot of requests from people to provide them kits, so let's get started. This track here is designed for a YouTube channel called OurTime4Adventures.
It's son of a digger a little faster coming down the ramp. Big jump by both trucks. They're heading wide. Oh, where's son of a digger going right near with a big jump off that side obstacle.
They race monster trucks and they're going to be racing mini monster trucks on this. One change that'll happen is it will have a drop right here. Coming off this, it'll have a drop and a jump and before it goes into the turns, which will greatly decrease the success rate but add for a little bit more excitement with it. Over on this side, it's using bigger turns at the start. It's not symmetrical, and then it uses bigger radius turns and then has a tighter radius at the right here so that it can go back in. This crossover right here is it's a modified. It's about a 2-foot cross, 18-inch. Measure this out here. 2 feet. It's a 2-foot crossover. The 2-foot crossover allows for a much shorter space, but because of this sharp turn right here, coming down a hill into a turn is really hard. So it can be somewhat unreliable with cars and racing, but when you have a small space, that's kind of what you end up with, is just having to make some concessions or deal with an inside lane advantage. On this right here, it's really great because you've got inside lane here, it switches to outside for the big curve and then goes back inside. So it evens out pretty well. Let me run a race. That was a great run. So you can see how as it comes through there, one car has an advantage and then the other car catches up, and it really maintains a pretty even race through that section. All right, in the track building process, I learned a lot. One is I used a lot of boxes and stacking things when I was getting started, and it wasn't working out great. Boxes don't hold still. Here's an example of, for a while I've been trying to think of support structures that would work well for diecast racing. And this is one thing I was playing around with. It's just too flimsy. These parts connect together. There's a little interlocking part in the middle so that they snap together, but there's still twists to it and they're just not stable enough. So don't laugh, but that's another thing I tried. It actually was more firm than that right there. I don't have all the connectors on right. It should be flat on the bottom all the way across, but this one had a connector there, so it didn't hold very firmly. So the goal was to be able to build a foundation that you could put together quickly and inexpensively using inexpensive parts. So working with Nick at Tiny Track Cars, we tested these little adapters that you could put 1/4-inch wood dowels in and build up. And you could cut them so that they were 6 inches and taller and build out. And what we decided was that just the cost and time to print these connectors just was cost prohibitive. Like, it totally could work. I think that it could be pretty stable if you built out the whole thing under it. Be pretty lightweight too. But in comparison to just wood, it just doesn't compete. Wood is just faster. So the next step after that, I moved to trying 2x2s. So I made the little adapters right here. You can put 2 screws in. They work great when they're offset. And then just screw down 3 or 4 of the corners. And that holds really well. I'm shaking it right now. It holds fantastic. Then on the top part, let me move to a different area. Hopefully you're not getting sick with all of this motion. On the top part, then I designed a bracket that came over and down and that the connectors just screw into. The next iteration was this right here. I was able to change the support a little bit more, trying to use a little bit less plastic on the side. I used way too much plastic on the top. It has standard screw holes for the standard SR2 and Crash Racers width. So if you put a connector there and there, then that fits with Crash Racers, and you can support Crash Racers just by coming under. Or by the 38, which I needed to explain, I forgot to explain, that this is a 38, this is not the standard Hot Wheels track. This right here is a 38mm track lane width, as compared to Hot Wheels, which is closer to 35. So this is a little bit wider. This track setup was designed for the Skyway short circuit, where the Skyway was racing premium cars that were a little bit wider, and they don't quite fit on a standard Hot Wheels track. So we're up here at the start gate. Right here, this is more of a standard car, and you can see how it has wiggle to it. That wreaks a little bit of havoc over on this turn right here. As it's going, it has a little bit of flex back and forth, so it's not keeping as tight. But what it does is that it allows for like big giant cars that are much bigger. This would never fit on this Hot Wheels track. So let's run it. This track is not designed for some cars, but even though it fits, this track does not do well with high profile cars. So this really intended for OurTime4Adventures with their minis and to be able to dial it in. And even then we might have to make some modification to this section right there. Anyway, for different reasons. That was a slight detour. So this is 38mm track. It's a little bit wider. That's why there are two holes. So right here, I'm using that bracket right there. The advantage with that bracket is that you can put a taller piece of wood on the side, and you have a lot of flexibility as you're building. If you need to go up another 3 inches, you can unscrew, move up 3 inches, and screw back in. This isn't the most stable. This isn't the permanent solution for track builds. This bracket is more for designing track. Like right here, you can see like that was there. This is screwed in there. Right here, what I did is I actually used Velcro on the bottom of the connectors right there, and you can put that anywhere on a track, and it just Velcros in so that it's really easy to just make super quick changes to and have it run like that. The next thing that I figured out was that 2x2s are terrible. They are so crooked. They bend. This one rotates and shifts all the way up so that by the time it gets up here, it's like twisting this way, which is just terrible. So I decided I didn't want to build for 2x2s for track building. So 2x2s are out. You can use them for cross beams if you wanted to. I've got a whole system for that kind of stuff, but in general, I'm not going to be using 2x2s. What I am going to be using, really quick, I don't have power. This is an unfinished basement. I don't have power running through it, so I'm just running my start gate off of a little battery. But what I am doing is 2x3s. So they're a lot straighter. Not that they're perfect, but they're a lot straighter and easier to find and easier to work with. And the great thing about it is that they fit directly underneath the track and are completely hidden if you want to do it that way. So let me show you how this part works, the top part. The bottom part's really basic. It comes with 4 screws for the bottom, 4 screws for go into the wood. They're all 1/2-inch wood screws. The 1/2-inch wood screws, let me talk about the base. This is a lot of stuff. So, whoops, step on the cars. This is 3x8 plywood. This is like the cheapest plywood that I could find. And with 1/2-inch wood screws and with the connector going into there, it worked out perfectly. So it's not poking through. You could use particle board or something like that. Particle board typically, from my experience, doesn't hold as well. But like right here, this has got 4 screws in it. And at the bottom, it's really great. For building, it's fantastic. You don't need a lot to hold up the track. So let me show you how this piece works. So with just 2 screws on the sides, I can rotate this and then it holds in place, and then I can rotate the top part. And then when I really like it, I can tighten it down more. And then I've just got those connectors on top. Let's put some crash tracers on that and just see how it fits. Ooh. Didn't mean for the sound effect, but there you go. It's holding it in place right there. Still has some flexibility for your downhill slopes. But you get 2 of those in place, and then you tighten those screws down, and it's going to be really, really great. Once you get it in the position that you want, there's a locking screw or a hole that you can put in to lock it down. I do want to show you what I was working on with 2x2 since I'm right here. This is just an example. Yeah, I've got little brackets that help you put 2x2s in. And this is a track I can't show yet, but the great thing about these right here, this is even a 1x1s, is that I can use clamps to clamp stuff in and hold it in place while I dial in how tall something needs to be. So like right here, I did that. I just used clamps. I put this in. And then once it was locked, I screwed it together. And you can just see this right here. This is actually, there's not even a clamp right here. And it still has enough friction just to hold it in place. All right, so to wrap up, I want to talk about, I don't have time to install the jump. You'll see the jump at OurTime4Adventures. It's going to be really fun. He's such a good channel, so entertaining, great for kids. But I've got two different turns here. This is the Spool Heads turn right here. I just realized it's actually installed backward. The short side's supposed to be here and the long side's supposed to be there. So I'll have to change that out at some point. That might explain a little bit of drifting coming out, a little bit more than I'm accustomed to. The other turn is I'm really excited to announce is this is the Cody Irons Open Track Modular turn. I'm really excited to announce that with Cody's permission, I've been able to modify it to be more Spool Heads connector friendly. So it uses Spool Heads connectors now. On the back side, it connects with screws, and then it has these little guides that you can screw down to lock down. Let's see right there. This turn right here is actually the turn that's used at Race City on 3D Botmaker's track, and it's had great success. It's really great. One great thing about it is that it's a smaller radius than the modular racing track turn by a little bit. So a little bit smaller turn there. I really like the bank that it has too. It doesn't go quite as high, so cars are allowed to get up a little bit higher on that. And for this track right here, it seemed to be a really great fit. So I'll be getting this up on the store, on the spoolheads.com store, and I'm working on all sorts of stuff. Oh, there's one other thing I want to talk about. Guardrails. If you didn't notice, these track pieces have guardrails on them. The great thing about guardrails is it gives a really, really fun interstate, highway look. It really ties it together, feels much more like it fits into a landscape or a diorama, and it's been really great. The challenge with it is that they are not as durable for some use cases. Cars are not going to break these. You only break them if you step on them, really, which I just earlier today stepped on one, and it broke. That's why you would consider going with an SR2, which... There we go. Ta-da! This is without guardrails. So this is the SR2 right here. It's the same design. It doesn't have guardrails. The guardrails actually stick out a little bit farther, so it ends up being a little bit wider. Well, this is the standard Hot Wheels 35 millimeter, and this is 38, so that's wider anyway. But it pops out a little bit more on the side. This is the SR3 design, and the SR2 does not have guardrails. So the great thing about the SR2 is that all of my pieces, like all of the stuff that I've designed, all of the turns are all SR2 that are dual lane. So the dual lane drop turn and the banked 20-degree turn, and that's all SR2. You can put a single lane, it fits perfectly right here, and then it can pull off, and then you can do different things. So if you want to even out an inside lane advantage, you could pull this off, have a little chicane in one lane, and then come back in really easily with a design like this. It's possible for sure with a design like this, but it's not just plug and play. You actually have to design it to do that. So you'd have little parts that merge back in and stuff. One thing I wanted to talk about is I forgot to add in. By the way, Spool Heads has open track, 3D printed open track now. This open track is being tested here. It's being tested on the We Race Diecast track, and Tiny Track Cars has got a bunch of open track. The great thing about these open track is that one is it's just another option to replace crash racers. The crash racers, I don't know if you know this, but it isn't flat. Especially the mat kind of bows up on either side and can cause some issues. And when you're using connectors, then it will go up and down all the way through, and it kind of goes up like that. This track right here is flat. That's just how it goes. So this has got 6 grooves. They're pretty thin. It matches up with Hot Wheels cars really well. The greatest thing about it is that this is 77 millimeter track, which is compatible with crash racers. I've also got an 88 and let me go get them. Let me show you. So this is a 77 millimeter track. This is the same lane width as crash racers. So then if you go, let me go up above. This is an 88 millimeter track. My hunch is the future of diecast racing is going to be closer to this than the crash racers. I feel like it gives more room for passing and for moving around. Then for even wider options, there's the 99 millimeter, which all of these are smaller than aren't as big as Fat Track, but this might encourage too much sliding and not correct. So once the car's sliding, the great thing about crash racers is that it's so tight that it'll ping pong and hit back and forth. We're testing out the 88 a lot, and I will be making some other changes and some turns that will line up with the 88 really well. The 100 and the 77 are also, this is all 77. Then there's also, I've covered this in a rubber coating. That's why it's a darker color as compared to this right here. The goal, 3D printed track is really slippery. And the rubber coating, I'm going to get some bigger track options out to look at it. But the rubber coating has a good option of helping to keep some grip going on it. So that cars don't slide as much. We're working on the grooves a little bit more. One thing that is happening, it's low enough that they can cross, but it is like crossing a little wake. So it's a little bit more bouncy than crash racers. But as I've shown here, and as we race diecast, tiny track cars, all of it is proving that these are viable options, especially the 88. We're really excited about the 88. Another option is this. You're going to freak out when you see that, maybe. Look at that. It's a flexible track. I got to get more of this printed and tested. And all of these are short lengths because the printers I've converted over to are limited in the height. Hopefully in the coming months, there are bigger printers that are kind of the new generation that will fit bigger pieces of track. We can get longer pieces. But that's what I'm looking at. There's all sorts of options for the open track stuff. So this is, I know I wasn't going to talk about all of this, but I did. I talked about a lot of stuff. So that was a lot of talking, and I apologize. That was not very much racing. But I've got a lot coming up. I'm going to be actually getting into racing, building out some other tracks for that. And I'd like to thank all of you for your support through this, especially the people that are making purchases. The purchases really help to drive the innovation that I can do forward and build the print farm out more and really get things going. Thank you so much. Let me know if you have what questions you have. I'm sure that there's a lot of questions on what can be done with this, but we're really getting to the point at Spool Heads where the sky's the limit. I mean, there's so much we can do. So much that can be done for track, for racing, and really just coming out with a lot of imaginative ideas and making racing really great. So thanks. And as always, race on, friends.